Hello, Reverend Crystal Cox here, Goddess Church. This is the Doctrine series, the doctrines of my church, what it is that's my belief, my knowing for me. This is the doctrine of government. There is a separation of church and state. Even though you're not required to incorporate as a church and a nonprofit, it does give you a business model of how you're going to move forward. A lot more on that later. I don't believe there is a need for government. I don't believe that government is useful in any way. I believe that government gets in the way of you leading a happy, healthy life. Okay? So, and as you've learned recently, they, take all your tax money and send it in foreign aid. So the politicians, the corruption, and more taxes come in. And people are like, yay, because they think the taxes are going to help people and build roads, and they don't. It went to the central banks, it went to other countries. It was borrowed back by local people to build roads, and anyway. So, if you need money to do a local project, you can hire like a general contractor that knows that project. So say if it's a building, or let's say the example of a building, you would get someone who knows how to build, who knows about plumbing and electric, right? You get all that. Instead of hiring a city manager for $160,000 and 10 other employees for $160,000 a year, and just tons of money just thrown every direction, you get a general contractor. Like artificial intelligence, I've seen a lot of channeled information about how it works in the future. So it'd be like, oh, this water main broke. We got an emergency. Okay, the manager for that project comes in. They call the people to fix it. But not people that don't know, right? Like most city managers. They just start calling around and figuring it out. And great. But this is where your money's going. So if you want to open a restaurant and serve me food, you have a health board, right? Which is ridiculous. Because people just clean things up just to pass, right? Then they go back to the sick stuff. They may be like, oh, well, we need it to be this temperature, that. It's impossible to keep all of that up. You have to discern. You have to trust yourself. I'm quantum. I trust myself. If I sit down and get a food poisoning, I was meant to, right? It's not going to be prevented. I've got it many times in my life. And the people had their health board inspections passed just fine. Okay, it's nothing to do with their system. They just do that to get more money from you, which is the weirdest example, like locally here, right? So the businesses have to pay their rent, they have to pay their electric, their insurance, unemployment, all of that. They get lockdowns, they get shut down by another government agency, which is the health board, not based on any sort of reality. They're not really showing you any facts. They're shutting everybody down, so they prevent them from revenue. But they're still taxing them. They still got to pay rent. They still got to pay permits. They still got to pay fines. They still got to pay for their food licensing so that the health boards can keep existing. Okay? I don't know why people play in that system. I've never played in that system. I've always had my own businesses, my own thing. It's just ridiculous. Okay? So you have a restaurant. You want to serve me food. First of all, you have to do all the paperwork, all the licensing, everything to get the health board and pay them all the time to monitor you, okay? The government gets in the way of you just making me a meal and selling it to me and me having personal choice, okay? Now, people could build houses. Most homeless people I know, especially, people not from big cities or whatever, we don't know how to build a frickin' house. We know how to build a shelter. They're like, oh, well, you're lazy and you're this and you're that because you're homeless. Well, but they have all this land that they give to timber companies to just strip. They have land that they do all kinds of things with. Just sitting there. You're not allowed to be on it. You're not allowed to build on it. They're not going to... If they would let the homeless people have land, they could bring in a garbage service. They could have like an outhouse. But they ban them from building houses, and then they complain about the garbage in the streets and the septic and all the issues, okay? Most homeless people are more advanced than all you working folks because they're outside of the system. They don't play that game anymore. So they create more of an energy and a frequency for the whole earth to move into a reality that's not based on that kind of control. And so if you think about it, like the homeless and the coronavirus, I mean, wasn't that funny? I mean, isn't that weird that all the homeless people aren't getting it? The Seattle Times just did an article on that. It's too funny. We gotta mask, we gotta hide, we gotta share everything out, and pretend the homeless people don't exist. We need them actually because, you know, they profit from the homeless people. More on that later. Okay, so government finds you. They take your money, they license you. You gotta have a license to fish, you gotta have a license to drive a car. These are your rights. And even if you believe, like, constitutionally, you are given all these rights. And I love that the main thing is, you know, separation of church and state. But it's so funny. America's like, we're a Christian nation. But they adhere to this ridiculous stuff that plants are poison and pharmaceutical drugs are the way to go, right? The CDC, FDA, they all lie about cures, right? They keep you sick. And people trust them, lots of people, over a plant that they believe in God and that God made. There is thousands and thousands of plant cures, thousands and thousands of frequency cures. Every disease is curable and has always been. They don't want you to know that. I always say that everything's curable, and the cure is reading, right? Even when I didn't have the internet, I found information on cures for everything. I mean, I had all the books on Renee Case, Harry Hoxsey, you know, the healing salves, the black salves. There's thousands of cures for cancer. But not only do they make you use, they force you to use their system. So government can take your kids, if your kids have cancer and you don't radiate, nuke, and give them surgery and cut them up and make their life miserable, right? You could heal them with alkaline. You could heal them with B17, with food grade peroxide. You could heal them with thousands of different therapies, but even like, you know, SEAC-T, Edgar Cayce, dendritic cell therapy. I mean, the list goes on and on, but they radiate and nuke these kids, and if you don't do it, they'll take them away from you and they'll do it. That's government. Okay, big church and government are in the way of you being happy, of you being healthy. Okay? They keep cures from you. They won't let you use herbal cures by force, right? The FDA comes in. I know so many people have had their labs raided, right? Just herb, just go out, pick a plant, just a little plant, you know, the great spirit, God, goddess. This plant is here and it heals this. You know, the witches, the healers, the sorcerers, all those people they demonize, they were using a plant growing from Mother Earth to heal something. The church came in, they're evil, hooked up with the doctors, which is a government run agency, and government, you know, the government is in charge of what they do because they license them, right? It's not, the really, government, I don't know, you might be able to make a separate argument, but this is my doctrine here, is that government is not beneficial in any way and interferes with every single thing. Government interferes with you getting cures. Government interferes with you having housing, being able to have the human right and civil right of being able to create your own shelter. You can't do it unless you can buy land and pay their high taxes. You can own a piece of property. You never own it. They tax you and tax you. They use your taxes to then oppress you more and make you have permits and to constantly harass you and keep you stressed out. Okay, this is, if government wasn't in the way, you just have the people and you have the merchants. Okay, don't need it. Is police part of the government? Yeah. Because the police will see a crime, they'll be like, oh, I'm going to take care of that. But the local government, the prominent people and the people who think they're all that, stop the police from doing their job based on politics. So the police would continue in their job, but it wouldn't be a government agency. It'd be a separate agency, maybe, you know, private agency or whatever, managed properly, and the laws would actually apply equally, not about people's money or not. And that's another artificial intelligence that we've seen in the future that happens. You know, crimes, it's easy to solve, right? So you have like 1,000 laws for one thing, because they make all these loopholes so they can get all their buddies out of it so they can prosecute who they want. Okay, all their new laws and all their stuff, it's just baloney. What's the new 6 they said? Even though they said it in 2s, they said, you don't kill me, I won't kill you. You don't harm me, I won't harm you. You don't steal from me, I won't steal from you. Maybe I got one of those off, but it's basic. Okay? Like, well, who will protect you if there's not the government? If the government wasn't in the way, we could protect ourselves, and we would eventually move to a society where we didn't need protected. Okay? Because people aren't going to mess with us if we're allowed to stand up for ourselves. if we're allowed to build on Mother Earth, why did this governing body of government and church get to come over here, like to America, for example, kill all the Indians in the name of their God and their government, take over the land, and then we're like born here. My people come over on the Mayflower. I mean, I'm like, you know, I'm part of that beginning stuff. And then they steal the land from the Indians, and then we can't have it. We can't like go out and build. There's tons and tons of land. We can't go build on it. You can't put up a tent in the city park. I mean, with the new COVID things, there's a lot going on. But if they would let homeless people build a long-term structure and then keep it clean, they could have a garbage service, have a bathroom service, that would solve the problem immediately. They don't want to solve it. They want to create more problems and more discontent so the government can make more money and have more control. Okay? It is a good thing, in my belief, that the church and the government are different, okay? And every single one of you are a church. Look up the laws on what it is to be a church. You're a church. You shouldn't be paying property taxes. You shouldn't be paying sales tax. You shouldn't be paying income tax, okay? Should you pay in to help the roads that you use? Yeah. But not in some tax where money goes to all these other countries and all these people and all these millions of dollars for city officials that don't actually do the job. Pay the man or the woman the job that needs done to do that job. Not to just stand there and go, well, it needs done, and then they hire this friend and that friend. And I was involved in a project in Montana where the people involved told me, unofficially, right, they got bids to do this massive river project, and it was millions and millions of dollars. They gave the job, so they got big money as the engineers and as part of the Forest Service and Fish and Wildlife, and all these parties and individuals got a bunch of money, right? And they make the landowner comply. And they have a meeting so the general public can bid on it. They never intend on hiring anybody from any of those meetings. They already have their person. They have their friend or their relative who they hire. Most city governments do this at every level, from what I've seen, my doctrine, what I understand here. And they deliberately do something to where it'll only last a couple years so they can be called in again. They have no liability. They're not held accountable for a good job. It's government work, and they hire their friends, and they have long-term income because it keeps messing up. So you still pay into something to fix something. A water main breaks, okay, we got a budget, we fix that. But you don't pay all of the people that are not doing the job for the job and take it from your own family, okay, to oppress you more. And so many people are like, well, you got to work, you got to this, you got to that. But they're fine with millionaires. We'll do this on a different doctrine of money and that system. I met a guy who had to give away $950,000 a year just to get his real inheritance every year from his trust fund. He had to give it away to an established nonprofit, hospitals or whatever. They make millions. What they say the other day, the Amazon guy, Bezos or whatever, makes $8 million an hour or something. People, just a stock, you sneeze, you go, choo! Or it's like, oh, the stimulus is happening, the stimulus is not happening. These people make millions and billions based on every decision that's made by Trump or anyone else in the government. If we didn't have the government, we wouldn't have this fake market in the stock market that's oppressing us too. People are like, you should work for a living and you should this and you should that in order to, you know, be a productive part of society and get help. They don't have no issue with people do currency exchanges, right? Making millions overnight. Banks use your money to do currency and trading overnight, and they buy life insurance policies. I know tons about all of that, okay? So these people are making money doing nothing or just you know, shifting some paper, and that's okay. But the people that always badgering the homeless, they're always like, you gotta get a job, you gotta get a job, you gotta work hard. And the people that are upset because of student loan debt that's gonna be wiped out, they're like, I paid mine, they should pay theirs. That mentality is gone away. It's definitely not of this church. I think I went off topic here a little bit. The doctrine of this church, mine, is that government is useless and harmful. Government gets in the way of you worshiping your God how you want to, really. They can shut down churches. They keep you from known cures. They regulate where you can go, when you can go there. They're not beneficial in my life in any way. And I've never known anyone that's benefited from the government. When you get in that system, that's great. You know, you work for the city, you work, you know, a lot of nepotism, it's good jobs for people, but just don't pretend that you're helping when you're not. I mean, people get these jobs because they're good jobs, but the whole structure of government is just in the way of people having joy, having health cares. 40% taxes, and no matter how much you pay to own your home, you have to pay massive property taxes. They can do whatever they want. They can spend millions on affordable housing projects that aren't really that. They can say they're into housing first, but they really want to create mental institutes to get more doctors paid, more psychiatrists, and more of the government entities, and all of those are ridiculous. Psychiatrists, doctors, all of that industry is archaic. It's not about healing. It's not high consciousness. And it's certainly nowhere near the doctrine of this church. So, no thank you. No government for me. The only government that will be in my life is what they force me to do. When they force me to shut up about all the cancer cures. When the FDA shuts me up about black salve curing cancer. Okay, I've seen thousands cured of it. Go ahead, jail me, kill me, because I cure people of cancer. It's curable. The government prevents you from curing yourself of disease. The government prevents you from driving without a license or fishing without a license. Oh, but we need the government because people would be... No, people actually wouldn't. People would regulate themselves and other people. And if someone tried to steal from them, they'd take care of it themselves. If the government wasn't in the way with all their monkeying around messes. So, that's my doctrine and that's my belief. No thank you, Mr. and Mrs. Government. Sorry, Uncle Sam, not me.